let me introduce to you Bill Varney. Bill is an entrepreneur, a botanist, and a chef. He has a booming business in Fredericksburg, Texas. He's an accomplished chef. He has an art gallery. He has a laboratory and makes products. He has a greenhouse, an art gallery, and all kinds of things happening. He teaches classes, and he's written a couple of books. So we're anxious to hear what you have to share with us today, Bill, and welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'll show everyone, this is a copy of the current book that's in print still, Herbs Grown and Using the Plants of Romance. And this book, the year that it came out, won Outstanding Gardening Book of the Year. The foreword to the book was written by Emily Tolley. Some of you are familiar with Emily Tolley. She has authored herself quite a few herb books, and she and I had known each other for years and years. And herbs encompass my life, and I use herbs from the time I get up in the morning until I go to bed at night. I use them to enhance my life in every way, and I hope by people joining in this webinar that they'll be a little bit more energetic about herbs and see how much more exciting herbs can be. Before we get started on the PowerPoint, I was going to just show, we're not in the greenhouse, but I've got some lavender here that we'll discuss. I've got fresh lemon trees that I just picked off my lemon trees in the greenhouse this morning. I've got some fresh basil here that I picked from the greenhouse in the morning. This morning, I've got some rosemary here, and then I showed you some basil. Well, then this is also some purple basil that I picked in the greenhouse this morning. It's nice and warm in the greenhouse. And then I showed you some lavender. Well, here's some of the lavender leaves. And then I've got some fresh thyme here. And there's a lot of other herbs that I would love to show you right now, but it's also rather chilly, even in this Texas hill country that I'm at. So I encourage you to ask questions, and sometimes if I don't have an answer right then, I can always get the answer back to you. At the end of the presentation, you'll see my information on how you can contact me if you have additional questions.
Great. Well, I'm going to pop out and let you take it away.
Okay. So I'm going to switch to the PowerPoint.
Just hit that X at the top and you'll disappear too. Your face
Okay.
will anyway.
So can I tell me how to just have it with a PowerPoint now?
Just there should be an X in the little box where your face is, and you can just hit that and you'll go to full screen PowerPoint.
Okay, there we go.
Nope, we can still see you.
Okay, so the first slide here, it shows our 5 senses. And today what I want to share with you is how herbs can touch all your senses through your food, through your home, through your bath, through your garden, through your skin, and through all parts of your lives. And it's a very exciting topic for me because it's how I live my life, and it's how I encourage people to live their lives. The next part is your brain and your senses. The brain and the senses connect. Western religions for years have pretty much made it sinful, made us feel sinful if we luxuriate in our senses. I don't know what it is, but when you read about history and you read about more modernized religions, a lot of times it's just been kind of frowned upon that we would enhance our senses and enjoy touching and enjoy feeling and having a more sensual life. And when I say the word sensual, a lot of people think sexual, but what I mean is sensual as in the senses. And technology separates us from our senses. When you think about if you work in an office, you're in a sterile environment. If you are driving, you're driving. We use the technologies of our phones and all these little things like our iPads and everything. And so, we go to malls and stores and we keep getting our senses denied. The nose is an amazing one of our senses. Humans can distinguish more than 10,000 different smells when just being exposed to 8 molecules of any one of them. Even being exposed to different colors causes significant changes in mood. You remember the mood rings that we used to have? And a lot of times when you smell something, when that smell makes you think of a certain color, or when you see a certain color, it makes you think of a certain smell. And so it's all interconnected with our brain. And I suggest that people figure out a way to tune into their senses and turn off some of the technology sometimes. And here we're using technology right now for this webinar, but it's important that we allow our primal imaginations to see sounds and to smell colors, and tune into our senses and enjoy getting to smell the things that can help us have a healthier life. Here's a picture of a typical, office, and basically offices, malls, they don't have windows. If they have windows, a lot of times they have a lot of things covered up because their thought is, oh, we don't want people to go out and be distracted. We want them to concentrate, and so our senses are cut off, and our minds are trapped. And then if they have plants in the offices, so often those plants have been polished and things like that. Sensory deprivation, studies have shown that the fluorescent lights can cause headaches, and that many patterns that are used in designs of offices and streets can cause severe visual disturbances. Most office desks are sterile to the eye. Then, like I said, the plants, they're not giving off things that help us, and our senses go into a bad mode because we can't enhance our senses at work. So from the time you go to work in the morning, whatever type of work situation you go to, usually you get behind your car wheel, you're driving, there's traffic, a lot of times people are on their cell phones, they're talking, they're not looking to the right, they're not looking to the left because they don't want to see people, they just want to get to work. And so after repeating that after work and going home, we finally get to put our keys into the doors of our home and unlock our senses. And our homes are our refuge. We can finally take a deep breath. So often, so many people, they walk into the house and they just plop down and turn the TV on. And that is not going to help you feel better about yourself. The more important thing is to sit down, take a deep breath, and start enhancing some of your senses. Home is where your heart is. Your home is a place of intimacy. It's a place of comfort, a place of privacy. In our homes, we can redress our balance between the sensuous and the artificial. In our homes, we can soothe, we can excite, we can retrain the senses, and we can tend to our neglect. What can we do in our homes that we, can make our home a true sanctuary? Well, one thing is we can have the lights dimmer, not bright fluorescent lights. We can have, when we have a bath, if you're truly going to have a bath, you can enjoy it, take the time and enjoy it. I am a big believer, after all day long, I take the time to sit down and enjoy a meal made from scratch, and then I have my home scented all naturally and beautifully, and so those things help as well to have a sensual home. Some suggestions for a more sensual home are like to use orange flower water after a meal to refresh your hands and your feet, or use rose flower water. Use light incense, and you can lightly incense your clothes you wear, so that even when you go away from your home, maybe when your clothes are, if you use a dryer You can throw in a natural bag of dried herbs, or a lot of my clients, they'll use my room fresheners, and then before they close the dryer, they'll just spray them in there. Obviously, the best way to dry your clothes would be outside on a cotton line, but a lot of people don't have the time for that, or if it's winter time, or if it's freezing outside. But you can enhance your clothes as well, so that when you're not at home, it's a wonderful way to help improve your senses. And the Danish, they begin every day before they even get out of bed. They just lean over and they light a candle, a fragrant, natural, organic candle that helps them start a new day and welcome in the new day. Your home, no matter whether you live in a high-rise or whether you live in a townhouse or an apartment or a huge, massive home, your home is your cradle. Your home is your heartland. This quote from Gaston is, "In our daydreams, the house is a large cradle." And we are sensuous beings, and so our home needs to fulfill the need for that. The sensuous home, you need to make sure that you have a comfortable bed. What I do when I clean my sheets, I spray before they go into the dryer, I spray them with a blend of herbs that I call Sweet Dreams. And the Sweet Dreams has lemon verbena, bergamot, sage, and lavender. And so when I put the sheets on the bed, the entire bed has a light scent of herbs that help you sleep better. And then you need to have a comfortable sofa and a comfortable chair. And you need to be able to make your home a pleasure zone, so that when you go into your home, it's truly a home that isn't sterile. Even on cleaning, when you clean your home, or if you have somebody that helps you clean your home, try to do natural, organic things, like using a blend of vinegar and water with a little essential oil of lavender to clean the glass, and then come up with some natural ways for cleansers on your floor. The worst thing is to walk into a home and it's squeaky clean, but you've used all these horrible unnatural ingredients, and then that's what you smell. And so it's not good for you inhaling all that. And so the sensuous home needs to feel, smell, and even taste as good as it appears. It needs to hold the sense of fresh air and good herbs and flowers and pets. I have a limestone home, and my home has old antique doors, and they say that even your doorknob should feel good to the touch to make it a wonderful home. And so it just depends on you and how you feel and what it is you want your home to be. It needs to be something that's special to you. The sensuous home is a place where you can, as they say, stop and smell the roses. And truly, roses are one of the best things. I was trying to find a few roses this morning in bloom, but I didn't have any roses in bloom because it's cold outside and I don't have any roses in the greenhouse. Smell is the most powerful of our senses. Nothing awakens uh, us like the sense of our smell. It's the fastest route to our emotions. A lot of times when you walk into a house and you smell certain things, it reminds you of your childhood. Even a baby, when a baby is born and they have their mother, if the mother leaves the room, the baby can sense, because they smell they smell their mother's smell. And a lot of times, if a mother steps back in the room, but the baby can't even see the mother yet, the baby can sense the smell of that mother. That's how strong our senses are. It's the fastest route to all of our emotions. Without smell, food loses a lot of its pleasure. It roots us to our experiences. Without smell, we would be denied many of our intimate memories. Candles are living lights. We use scented ones often in a sensuous home. And instead of smothering yourself with the overpowering artificial scents, Gently perfume your home. Sprinkle your favorite pillows and paper and laundry with natural scents, and make each room a zone that you're really proud of. And some of the ways that I wanted to share with you that you can use some natural blends of scents is, for instance, after you've been outside, just say that you like hiking, or you like jogging, or you just like to go out and work in the garden. A great blend for a balance after activities is a blend of sage and lemongrass. And then if you need serenity, and we all need serenity, a blend of lavender, lemon verbena, basil, and jasmine. I do those in a serenity room freshener. And if you're in a sensual mood, we of course have Valentine's coming up. Um, then a blend of ylang ylang, patchouli, sandalwood, and cinnamon is a great blend. It just makes you feel better, and it makes you feel better when you have someone to smell those scents with. And I think we need to send some good karma up to the White House. For good karma, it has geranium, lemongrass, rosemary, and basil. And then another blend that I absolutely love, it's one of our best-selling blends, but it's for pure air. And at this time of the year when people are inside so much more, it's chilly outside, people get stopped up. I use this blend, all of these blends, I actually also use them in skincare, and I use them in bath and shower gels, but I do all of these in a room freshener. So for pure air, we do a blend called Pure Air, and it's eucalyptus, peppermint, and lavender. And that blend is so nice. It just opens you up. I mean, if you're kind of stopped up, or the central heat in your home has got it kind of stuffy, you can spray the Pure Air. You can take a shower with Pure Air bath and shower gel, or you can take a nice warm bath with Pure Air. And if you want to sleep better, a lot of times people have trouble sleeping, and so they want to try to be able to go to sleep better and just breathe. And I told you what I do to the sheets, but in addition to that, before I go to sleep, I'll take the Sweet Dreams and I'll spray it about 1.5 2 feet over the bed. You don't want to get the sheets wet, or the bedspreads or the pillows wet, but you just spray it, and it's such a fine mist, it comes down. And so that's a blend of lemon verbena, bergamot, lavender, and sage. And then in our kitchens, you'd think, oh, I don't want my kitchen to smell because, I'm got food around it. But if you scent your kitchen with natural scents, it's a very good thing, because so often, let's just say you were sauteing some garlic and then you were preparing some fish. Well, you don't want your kitchen to keep smelling like garlic all the time, or have the smell of fish. And so a blend of for the kitchen that's wonderful is using grapefruit with orange or apple. And a lot of times I'll take grapefruit, orange, and I'll also blend lemon, and I'll put lemon verbena in it too. And other times I'll just use apple. And then an unusual blend that most people wouldn't think of blending together, but if you want to have your bathroom smell wonderful, a blend of rose and marjoram is a great blend. You'd be thrilled about that type of blend. There's another blend that I don't have on this list, but I want to tell you about it, and that is one that's called Protection. Protection is just what it sounds like. It's protection. We all need a little protection. When we go into our homes, we want to feel that we're safe and we're protected in our home. Well, I had a client, a lot of times some of the products that I do are based on a client coming in, talking to me about something that they need, and I'll do the research and I'll figure out the blend, and then I'll make something up and they'll smell it, and if they like it, then I'll make it for them. And oftentimes what I've made for them is so wonderful, I'll go ahead and start selling it. Well, I had a client, and she had approached me that she had a lot of things going on in her life, and she felt that there was a lot of people being mean, and it just was a hostile work situation, and she needed protection. So I came up with a room freshener called Protection, and it is quite a wallop of different things. Let me just tell you, and if you have a pen, you can write it down. But for Protection, I use basil, and basil is for sympathy. And I use lavender in it, and it's for love and long life and happy sleep. And I use lemon in it, and that's for cleaning, purifying, and clearing. I use mint in it, and mint is for healing and protection. I use nutmeg in it, and nutmeg is for healing. I use rosemary in it, and rosemary is for keeping evil at bay. And I use geranium in it for protection and healing, and this is rose geranium that I use. I use eucalyptus in it for protection and healing. I use cinnamon for physic and intuitive enhancement. And I use lemongrass for clearing the mind and encouraging meditation. I also add marjoram to it for health and happiness. And I add sage to it for clearing out negativity. And finally, I add ylang ylang to it for ebullience and joy. And I tell you, that is one of my most popular room fresheners. People that get it, they come back and use it again and again and again. So here's the list of some of those things that I've discussed with you for breathing it all in and loving it all out. And you can look that over and you can see in there, I show a picture of my kitchen room freshener, and it's really clean and fresh. I think you're going to enjoy it. And I've given you some good suggestions here on ways to scent your home. And I talked to you about the pure air and the good karma, and then one that's not on there, the protection. And then sometimes if you want, you can just take you can take some fresh herbs and lay them on your bed and pick them up and just hold them and smell them, or put them on the side table and then just breathe the fresh herbs. Sometimes some people like to take a bundle of fresh eucalyptus and just hang it near the head of the shower, and then you can just naturally smell eucalyptus when you get into the shower. And then on your patio, even if you don't have a large yard, if you just have a small patio with some potted plants, you can, I think you can really enhance your life by planting herbs on your patio. And some of the herbs that are really wonderful to have planted as a pot of lavender, and then having herbs and flowers around you daily helps enhance your life. Some of the other things besides lavender, violets, rosemary, jasmine, carnations, honeysuckle, lemongrass, lemon verbena. Lemon verbena is one of my favorite herbs, and roses. And that's just to name a few. There's so many other fragrant things, but to be able to allow your nose to inhale all those different scents. And then I like having a little vase in different rooms around the house with, sometimes it's just in the vase a sprig of rosemary, or at your desk to have a sprig of rosemary, or to have a single rose flower to help our senses be able to really work correctly. This is a picture of me in my greenhouse that was taken in the fall by a local guy that is studying professional photography, and then it shows a few of the other aromatherapy room fresheners that I make, herbs in the home. And the next slide is two mothers that are girlfriends and their two daughters, and they had asked me to do a little private class for them in my greenhouse. And food is love and all its complex guises. And so when I prepare food, I make everything from scratch, but I don't make it complicated. I make sure that it's made from scratch. It's not nuked in the microwaves. It's not something that's just a pop-out thing that you do. I truly believe in making food from scratch. And you can see by the looks of these ladies in the greenhouse how much fun they were having. Yes, it was bright. They all had their sunglasses on, but they were having a great time. They're actually down a bicycle tour. They'd flown in from Michigan and flew into Austin, Texas, and came over to the hill country and did a bicycle tour. And then I was the end of their bicycle tour, where they came and learned a little bit about herbs and had a wonderful meal in the greenhouse enhanced with herbs and flowers. we cook for those we love. And this next slide is a couple that had also done a bicycle tour, and they were celebrating her birthday, and he surprised her with this beautiful, enchanting evening in the greenhouse. And you know, food is not simply about eating, but about preparation, cooking, presentation, finally consuming and enjoying. Essential food is food that we enjoy for what it is. It's about natural flavors and freshness. Food is love in all its complex guises. We reward ourselves with food. We console ourselves with food. We cook for those we love. I love this quote from Piet van Home. Cooking is like love. It should be entered into with abandon or not at all. So some ideas on foods that help make a more sensual home that herbs certainly go right into that is scratch-made breads. I like to do breads that are made with fresh herbs. Art, artisan handmade cheeses from a variety of milks, cows, milk, sheep's milk, goat's milk. And then olive oil is a really healthy oil to use, and it's good for you. And then root vegetables, all kinds of root vegetables, fruits, especially mangoes, bananas, pomegranates, figs, strawberries, raspberries, watermelon, mushrooms, and then sensuous vegetables. For instance, avocados and onions, fresh ginger root and asparagus, and fresh oysters, and of course, dark chocolate. This coming Friday, every first Friday of every month, I stay open late for what we call Art Walk, and I feature a different artist, and I have some appetizers and some snacks to pair with that. And so I'm doing aphrodisiac appetizers and dessert for this Friday, and so we're going to have foods that are aphrodisiac type foods enhanced with herbs. So we're having a black bean salsa, and then we're having an avocado, because avocados are an aphrodisiac, so an avocado chutney with crackers. And then we're having honey is a aphrodisiac sensual food, and so are almonds. And so we're having these little, they'll be heart-shaped little cookies that we'll be serving that are made with flour. And if you're gluten-free, you could always use a different sort of gluten-free ingredients to do it. But you use almonds and honey, and then you bake it, and then you use a cookie cutter. So I'm using a heart-shaped cookie cutter for that. And then the next slide shows a romantic evening in the greenhouse and an edible flower salad with herbs. And so, obviously not everyone has a greenhouse, but you can certainly on your patio, if you live in an apartment, you have a little table and chairs, it's just good to get fresh air and smell, fresh ingredients, and take the time to stop and smell the roses. I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that every night, that's what I do. I sit down, I take the time, and I have a wonderful meal made from scratch. I do that every evening. It doesn't matter whether I'm by myself or whether I have guests. I make sure that I truly take care of myself with the time to sit down and enjoy every morsel and play beautiful music, and it makes a huge difference. This next slide, I wanted to show you some different ways that you can use herbs to really enhance your life. So the picture on the left here is my rose geranium pesto breakfast buns, and this recipe was featured in a book from UT Press that was my recipe, and then a local magazine featured a story on me about these recipes. And it uses fresh rose geranium, and you make your dough, you let it rise, and you grind the rose geranium up into a paste with sugar, and you spread that over the dough, and then as it rises, then you punch it down and let it rise again. That's a dish that does take a bit of time to prepare. But then you see a martini glass there, and the martini is a very unusual martini. It'd be more like a brunch or an evening martini. It certainly wouldn't be a breakfast martini, but it could be a brunch martini. And it is so amazing. It uses fresh organic roses from the garden. And then I make a rose flower water. And then you make a simple syrup, and you take the rose petals and grind them up with sugar in the food processor, and then add that sugar to some water and make a simple rose flower water syrup. And then in the shaker, you add the vodka and add some of the the simple syrup made with the rose flower water and the rose petals, and then just a touch of lemon. And it's such a beautiful drink. One of the artists in our art gallery was so amused by it that she took a picture of it with her phone. And about a year ago for my birthday, she surprised me with a beautiful painting of it. And then on the right is a picture of some shish kebabs, but instead of using shish kebab skewers, I used long sprigs of overgrown herbs. So some of them were basil stems, some were rosemary stems, some were sage stems. So it's enhancing your food in a little bit different way with herbs. And then herbs, I call herbs the plants of romance because what's romance to one person is one thing, and what it is to someone else is a totally different thing. And I've reached an understanding of herbs that reflects my changing relationships with other people. They can define who we once were, who we are, and who we might become. Herbs grow up close and personal. I encourage you to try your hand at growing savory, reputed to have earned its name from the satyrs who found it essential in their amorous activities. The plants of romance is different, like I said, for all people. Growing the plants of romance is a distinction that's important to remember. For instance, some people think that romance is just lace and flowers and hearts, and it's to be celebrated at weddings and Valentine's. But to me, the plants of romance is a little bit different meaning. I think of the plants of romance of smelling wonderful things, and I think of it as loving what you do and making a decision every day to be joyous and happy. Let's just say we've had a hard freeze and I lost a number of plants. Well, I just have to be positive about it and think, well, it could be worse. And for us to have an impact, whatever work we do, maybe it's not what you love, but figure out a way to love it and figure out a way to approach it so that you can enhance your soul and your heart by having a more romantic life. And towards the end of this, I just want to thank you for joining me on this, and I want to take questions. If you have questions about growing herbs or coming up with a blend. I started raising herbs years and years ago. I was 8 years old when I got my first greenhouse. It was a birthday present from my parents, and I started my first little herb shop 34 years ago. And my son is 30 years old now, so he grew up behind the counter around my restaurant that I used to have. He grew up traveling with me to speaking engagements around the United States, overseas, on cruise ships. And I absolutely think that herbs are such a gift from God, and they enhance our lives in so many ways. They can take just a mediocre day and make it absolutely wonderful. They can take you from not feeling that great to just making you feel wonderful all over, just smelling the different things. I have in my hand right now a bottle of one of my body care products that I call Detoxify Body Oil, and it's made with grapefruit, geranium, and juniper, and it's absolutely wonderful. It doesn't stay oily on your skin, but it moisturizes your skin, and it helps detoxify bad things from your skin. And with that blend of the grapefruit, the geranium, and the juniper, it makes you feel great. So one of the things that we're also going to do is Karen is helping me figure out a way to give away a few of my Delight the Senses t-shirts. So we're going to figure out a way to do that. So if people have questions, I'm totally open for questions.
Okay, Bill, you've got a few questions here, so let me start asking, and then we'll get to our giveaway at the end. Why
Okay.
don't we, do you want to bring our webcams back on?
Okay.
Make it a little more interesting. So first question from the beginning was, can you review what's in the Pure Air blend?
I'm sorry, ask the question again.
Can you review what's in Pure Air? You mentioned that.
Okay.
Pure Air.
Right, so the Pure Air blend is, it helps with sinus and allergies, and it has eucalyptus essential oil in it. It has peppermint essential oil in it and lavender essential oil in it.
Okay. There was also a question. Somebody says that they're new to herb gardening and don't have a lot of money to buy a lot of different blends. And can you tell us how to go about using the herbs we grow in our homes? I think you might have done that after she asked that question.
Okay.
Using bundles, having plants around your home in different places, bud vases. I think that's what you said,
Well,
right?
if you don't have a large budget, you can always just get a few seeds and start seeds in little pots. You do need to, what people forget about herbs is the basic growing necessity of an herb is they need to have at least 6 hours of sunlight a day. And so inside, if you don't have 6 hours of sunlight a day, you really need to grow them outside in pots. I know I've read lots and lots of stories on growing plants inside, but in my own experience, I haven't had a lot of luck with herbs. Now, houseplants I have a huge amount of luck with, but in the sunny windows, I can grow certain things. And so, for instance, mint grows very easily, so you could grow a pot of mint just outside and then protect it when it's cold weather, and then you could use the mint leaves and put them in a bottle and then add your ingredients for what you're making. For instance, on a room freshener, the one that I said about the Pure Air, well, if you've got a sprig of eucalyptus, and eucalyptus is a little bit harder to grow in our part of the world, unless you live in California or down in Florida, but you can take a sprig of eucalyptus, put it in the bottle, a few sprigs of peppermint, and then a few sprigs of lavender, and then add pure alcohol. And I'm not talking about rubbing alcohol because it has too much smell. So you would need to use something like Everclear, pure grain alcohol, and then distilled water, and blend those together, and you could get an absolutely wonderful room freshener. Because the essential oils do add up. I mean, you can buy just a few, but you could always start with just a few and then add to your aromatherapy. The trick with using essential oils is almost the same trick as cooking with herbs. A little goes a long ways. So I always tell people when they do that, you can always take and you can always add a little bit more, but you can't take it out once you've added it in. So.
Okay, so to piggyback on that, there's a couple of related questions. So do you use fresh or dried herbs when you make your blends?
If at all possible, I would use fresh. But one thing that people need to understand is that if you're following a recipe, you're going to use twice the amount of the fresh herb and half the amount of the dried. And some people think, well, why would that be? Well, it's because when the herb has dried or the flower has dried, it's a concentrate. And so if you have basil that has dried, it's concentrated because it's shriveled up. So if you used a tablespoon of basil, well, if the recipe called for fresh and you were using dried, you would use half the amount then because of the fact that the dried is a concentrate. But the flavors and the fragrances are so much better with fresh.
Okay, and then carrier oils?
So carrier oils You can use a lot of different carrier oils. For instance, I mentioned about my detoxified body oil. Well, I use a lot of oils. I use a lot of carrier oils in that. And I do that because if I use just straight one carrier oil, it could end up being too oily on the skin. So I like to use a blend. So sweet almond oil is one of the most common, and you can actually add grapeseed oil. You can add avocado oil. You can actually add a small amount of olive oil. You can add a little safflower oil. There's so many different carrier oils that you can use, but I like to use as my base, my main one, sweet almond oil.
Okay, yeah, I like that one too. Let me see if there's any more on how do you blend your special blends, especially when you're using so many essential oils, such as your protection blend. Do you use any hydrosols?
I just, on the protection blend, I do it just almost similarly. I was talking about the body oil, but on the protection blend, here's the protection. And I do this in a room freshener and also do it in a candle. And on that, I just I make up a base of all those oils. So I have a concentrated oil in a dark brown bottle that I have all those oils, and it's a straight oil. I don't lighten it up or anything. So it's worth a lot of money when I make the bottle up of that oil blend. And then when I make the room freshener, I add the pure grain alcohol. Then I add in the blend of the oils together. And then I add a little bit of water. And you have to always watch out because I don't want to dilute it down too much with water.
Right.
But I add a little bit of distilled water to it to stretch it out, because otherwise it would be so expensive if you're using the whole thing with grain alcohol. So then as it starts to get a little bit cloudy, then I'll add a little bit more of the grain alcohol. And then sometimes when I smell it, it has to satisfy my nose. And so sometimes I'll add a few more drops of the oil blend.
Okay, makes sense. Couple more on that same line, and then we're going to switch gears. Do you recommend a particular brand of essential oils, or do you make your own?
I don't recommend any certain brand. I buy from a company that only sells to businesses in large volumes. So I have some cans that's 25 pounds, and maybe that 25 pounds was $600 or $700, and then I buy other things in just a little small bottle, and I might buy from one company another. I probably have oils from 10 different companies in my laboratory. Okay. But I know some people are all hip on one company or another company. I've heard some companies that I've heard such great rage reviews on. Well, they end up cutting their essential oils with a carrier oil. When I get an essential oil, I want it to be 100% pure of that essential oil, and I don't want it diluted down. So you have to read the label like on anything and make sure that you're getting an essential oil that is pure essential oil of what you're buying.
All right, sounds good. Then one more on this line of questions. Why do you use a grain alcohol in the room air freshener? Why not use just water?
Well, the reason I use the alcohol is because it helps disperse the essential oil. If you use straight water, the oils would bead up and they would be at the top or the bottom. You'd have to shake it. And by adding the alcohol, it helps distribute the oils all together. And if I did straight water, obviously I would have a much better profit margin and a lot less expense, but then they wouldn't be the best room fresheners. And my room fresheners are one of my hottest selling items because people that buy my room fresheners, they know how wonderful they are, and so they stay strong from the beginning to the end.
So the next obvious question is, do you ship?
Oh yes, we ship. So I get probably 30–40% of my business is by my website.
Great. Well, you've got a fun business going on down there. I wish I lived closer. Okay, couple more questions.
Okay.
If somebody is interested in installing a sensory herb garden, what herbs would you recommend for hearing and touch?
For hearing and touch? Well, for touch, I would recommend like lamb's ears. And here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to refer to my book, and in my herbs book,
You wrote a great
I've
book.
in my herbs book, the cool thing is I have listed here herbs for a culinary garden, herbs for a medicine chest, herbs for a backyard spa, herbs to scent your home for crafts, and then I have perennial herbs, annual herbs, and then I break it down to color. And so for
hearing is always challenging, I think, in the garden.
right,
You have
there's
wind that
with
blows through something.
with the plants, it's a bit challenging. So for hearing, I would encourage planting anything that produces flowers and that attract birds, and produce seeds that attract different animals. Because I know my son has mentioned to me before, he's head of social media for a large nonprofit. And for a long time, when I was doing some little videos that I would put on social medias, I would have music playing in the background, and that would be it. And Roy, my son, has a master's in journalism, and he's head of social media. And he said, Dad, people can hear music anywhere. He said, you need to let people hear the crunching of your feet on the gravel. You need to let them hear the birds sing in the background. You need to let them hear the rooster crowing in your voice and talking to them about that. So hearing, like you said, is a little bit of a challenge with plants. I could probably, if you got that person's email address, I could probably send them a list when I look through a few more of my notes. And then for the part about children, well, I would say that sunflowers, I would say petunias, I would say lamb's ear, I would say mints. Kids love the smell of mint. Big leaf things, bright colored things. I've worked with children a lot over the years. I used to have one local school, and the kids would, as part of their yearly assignment, they would have to choose an herb that they grew. They had to study everything about that herb for that school year, and then they would come and do Shakespeare sonnets in my gardens in the spring. And so anyway, I can get a list of those for that person if they want.
I'll get you her email.
Okay.
Somebody would like the recipe for the rose geranium pesto breakfast buns.
Okay. Well,
sounded pretty
what I'll do is I will if you get their email, I'll email them that recipe.
Okay, I can do that. And somebody would like to know the species of lavender that you find most successful in Texas. Could be a lot of different ones, right?
There's a lot of different ones. I mean, they have lavender festivals all around us, and what one person says is the very best one, somebody else says, oh, that's not my favorite one. There again, I'm gonna, just so that I don't get off track here, I'm gonna open my book to my page on lavender, and some of the blends. I like the lavandula augustifolia, and then I like the Spanish lavender. Those two I really like a lot, and
augustifolia.
Those are my two favorites.
Culinary one.
Right. So
and I'm getting now lots of responses that more people want your recipe for that. So we'll have to talk.
Okay. All right.
Figure out a way to make that happen. Watch our social media.
Okay. All right. Well,
Um,
we can get more recipes out to them, and I can send them to you, and you can figure out how you want to distribute the recipes.
all right, I like it because then I get them too.
Yes.
Okay, so I think I have gotten, there's a couple more. Yes, several more people. Yes, okay, we'll make sure everybody gets the recipes because I'm getting lots of questions on that. And you don't make your own. So somebody asked a question about making your own essential oils, and I would suggest that we had a webinar on making essential oils, which was really good. So check our webinar library, and there's a whole webinar on that. So, all right, and the final question is, what's your favorite rose? Do you have a favorite rose?
My favorite rose?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like the antique roses, and so I don't have one particular antique rose as my favorite, but I raise all antique roses, and my favorite are the red and the dark pink ones. So
Mm-hmm.
and because they're antique roses, they're the old-fashioned variety. They're tough. They can handle our heat. They can handle the winters. They're easy to take care of, and so I always have lots of roses in the spring and the summer and into the fall.
Great. All right, let's shift gears and do our giveaway. What do you think?
Okay, cool. That sounds great.
All right, so do you want to show them? Do you want what we're going for? Should we do the
Yeah,
two
sure. Yep.
t-shirts?
So hold on just a second, and I'll be right back. I didn't grab one yet. Let me grab one.
All right. Well, I guess we'll talk amongst ourselves. So I thought this was really an inspirational program, and I don't know about your neck of the woods, but it is darn cold here, and we are spending a lot of time thinking about spring gardens. And I hope you got a lot of great ideas of things to plant, things to incorporate into your garden to enhance the sensory appeal and mix it up a little bit, try some new things.
Okay.
And we're back.
Okay, I went into the store and I grabbed one, and it's our Be Sensible T-shirt. So it has,
That's
all the senses on it, and they're gray with the bright colored art on the front, and on the back it says Urban Herbal.
terrific.
So they're a fun shirt to wear, and they're all V-necks. So
Okay,
we're gonna
we're doing how many of those? Two?
three of those.
Three of those. All right. So here's how we're doing this. This is a new thing for us with our webinars. And I pulled up a random number generator on my iPad. So I know how many of you there are out there. And I'm going to hit the button. It's going to tell me a number. And then as you all entered our webinar room, you're here in order. So I'm going to pick you from that list. So the first one is number 25. So when we scroll from the bottom up, and it looks like Kathy C. Kathy C, you just won a t-shirt. I'm going to write them down, and then we will email you and get your particulars, or you can email us, and we'll figure out how to get it to you from there. All right, I'm going to hit it again. Number 22, I guess we're staying in the 20s. And that looks like Kathleen McGowan. Kathleen McGowan, you won one too. I'm writing you down so I can find you again. All right, one more. And it's number 68. So we're going to go all the way up here. And it takes me a minute to scroll. So, and it is Anna Chapman. So Anna, you have won a t-shirt. So I'm going to write you down as well. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for your generosity, Bill. That's kind of fun to add a giveaway to this. We will send you all an email and get the best mailing address for you, and I'll forward that on to Bill, and he can send them to you directly. Thank you all for joining us here at the Herb Society of America. We're glad you came. Check out our library for more fun and engaging topics. And certainly check our website for the next webinar that's coming up in February, Putting Herbs to Work in Your Garden with Karen White. And that'll be Thursday, February 21st at 1 p.m. So Eastern Standard Time. So thanks again, and we'll look forward to connecting with you all again. Thanks again, Bill. Wonderful job.
Take care. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks.